Good afternoon, Steve. How are you?
Good, Bethany. How are you today?
Doing well. We are back again at it with another Hot Topics behind the scenes, if you will. Dive into some of our recent topics. And this one we're covering today is called Damn You, Nielsen. I feel like there should be a comma, right? Damn you, Nielsen.
Yeah,
It's kind of
probably.
the way. Yeah, damn you, Nielsen. We'll have to check on that on the website. But either way, a lot of people, obviously, when you hear that title, figure that maybe this vlog is sort of us going on the offensive, if you will. But actually, that's not at all what it is, Steve. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your thinking behind this vlog?
Well, I mean, it has been, even going back to the days of arbitrage, it has been the knee-jerk excuse for why things are going wrong. Huh, it's Nielsen's fault. It's Arbitron's fault. They didn't put the diaries in the right place. They didn't put the meters in the right place. Blah, blah, blah. Now, there is a kernel of truth to that if you are actually digging into your sample. As we always say to our clients, you're paying Nielsen for sample, not for ratings.
Right,
And if you're
right.
in a PPM market, obviously you have a level of consistency in the sample that we don't really see in diary markets, because every week's a different sample in diary, whereas we carry them over in PPM. So you should be paying attention to where the sample is, right? If you're being underserved in a certain area, or let's say in PPN, your prime competitor, which we've seen over and over again, has a huge household that's driving them. Be aware of that. That'll inform your decisions. But
And research director, by the way, can help you with all of that if you
all of
are
that,
unsure and need some guidance. We have plenty of resources and guidance to assist
and,
you. Go
and
ahead,
cool
continue, Steve.
and cool reports that really peel back the layers. Um, so, but it's always been, look, I did it when I was a PD. Oh, they didn't put the sample in the right place. It wasn't my fault.
Me
Um,
too.
but the reality is that Nielsen's our currency. It is what we are judged on. It's our report card. We have to live with it. Now, again, hold them accountable for sample, which is what we do with our clients all the time. We're part of our job is we're the Nielsen whisperers, and we will point this kind of stuff out. And we've helped clients write letters and things like that become a squeaky wheel. Because if you don't
Yeah.
complain, nothing's going to happen. But to say that you're necessarily, a consistent problem with a station's ratings is the fault of the rating service,
Continuously, all the time.
that becomes excuse making. You may want to look a little in other areas. Yeah, I mean, look, everybody has a bad book. Everybody goes through a bad downturn. Look, we've had clients that have had, and we have a couple of them experience it now where they're not where they have been for a long time. Well, they lost the big households. They haven't
Something
been
happened.
replaced, or the households that came back in are lighter users of radio. So there are reasons why it happened that are not necessarily product related. So that's kind of like I was kind of making a joke about we've always PDs have always had that in their back pocket. Oh, it was a bad book because this happened. Yeah, you should look at your books every time and really dive into it and figure out what goes on. But the chances are that it's Nielsen's fault. Not necessarily the case unless there's a sampling issue. Again, pay attention, but
It
it's not
shouldn't be assumed. It shouldn't just be assumed, right? When until you actually dive in and see exactly what's going on a more specific level. It sort of makes me think of like the standardized tests, right? That you used to have to do in high school, like the SAT or the ACT. It's like that's what they're using. Those are the tests that they're
yeah,
using. There's people say that this one ain't good, that one ain't good. Like it's you can't if you're not good at this subject, don't take this one or that one, but that's what they're using. And so, yes, but you still have to look at like what's going on as far as how you're performing on the tests. And instead of just blaming it on, it's just these standardized tests, they just don't know how to measure things properly. It's kind of that same
right.
idea.
Well, I mean, look, and I'll tell our clients this all the time. The easiest default for me is to blame Nielsen. I use it as my last resort. Yeah, will I point out when Nielsen's kind of screwed up? Yeah, sure, no problem with that. But that's not my first default. Let's find out other issues, and it's also a matter of if you're consistently down, what did you change? Is your programming different? Personality different? All sorts of competitive nature, all that kind of stuff. There's so many factors that go into that. But I just kind of use that as a way of going, let's hold Nielsen's feet to the fire, but don't assume that they're your problem. I
Kind
mean,
of
we can
like
have,
there's
look, we can,
steps to take first. We do
well, look,
things first and
right.
figure out then, that could be, but there's other things we got to explore initially.
And look, radio can sit there and say, and we need more sample. Yes, we do need a larger sample size. Nielsen would be happy to give us a larger sample size if we pay for it. Radio's not going to pay for it. So just end that argument right there, that conversation, and deal with what we have. It's currency. Know what you're doing. Know what you're getting and how you're performing based on that, and you'll sleep better at night.
And also focusing on, it's kind of just a good life lesson in general, but the things that you have power over versus the
Yeah.
things that you don't have power over.
Yes.
And it's like
Yeah.
you were mentioning, there are a lot of things that stations do have control over, can make changes, and
Right.
see what happens when you do that, as opposed to trying to focus on some of the stuff on the Nielsen side that is not controllable by the stations,
No.
unfortunately. So
No.
good lessons here. I like this, Steve. Thank you for your participation and for giving us a little behind the scenes on that blog. You guys can check out the full blog on our website. Excuse me. I will include the link in the description of this video, and we will be back very soon to dive into another hot topic. So until then, take care. Bye, Steve.
Thanks, Bethany. See you.